I'll tell you a secret about gifts, because I've had a few centuries to think about them. The best ones are never the ones wrapped with the straightest corners or tied with the biggest bows. They are the ones that carry a heartbeat. Tonight, riding the long arc of winter sky, I felt that heartbeat tug me toward a quiet street where the reeds are simple and the lights are modest, yet the glow feels warmer than a ballroom chandelier. The reindeer skimmed the rooftops. Snowflakes spun like tiny silver coins tossed into a fountain, each one making a wish as it fell. I could hear the soft creak of the weather vane, the distant hush of the ocean you can't quite see from town, and the steady rhythm of two people getting ready for Christmas the only way they can afford this year, with hope and a little courage. Down on Maple Street, in a small apartment that smells faintly of oranges and cinnamon because someone saved the peels from last week and simmered them in water, lived Elena and Marco. They had a plant by the window that leaned toward the light like a child reaching for a hug. On the little table, two cups, one chipped, one not, a candle that had been trimmed carefully so it would last longer, and a list written in tidy handwriting. Rent, groceries, warm socks, bus pass. At the bottom, circled, a single word. Gift. It was written twice because each had written it for the other where the other wasn't looking. They did that often, those two. They tucked kindness into each other's pockets when the world felt drafty. Elena worked at the bakery that rose before the sun. Her sleeves were always dusted with flour, and she could braid a loaf the way a mother braids hair on the first day of school. Firm, neat, and with a kiss tucked into the pattern. Marco was a bicycle mechanic who could coax the laugh out of a stubborn chain and stand patient while a child told him the grand story of a scraped knee. They did not have much, but they were not poor because they loved each other in a way that made the simplest breakfast feel like a feast. Still, December can be a tightrope for people like them. A little wobble, one unexpected bill, and the rope sags. That afternoon, as gray lights slid across the kitchen tiles, each decided, separately and at the same exact time, that love would not be embarrassed by money. Love would be bold enough to give. I was there when Elena opened the shoebox beneath the bed. Inside were postcards she collected from the free rack at the library. Snow scenes, pine forests, a painting of a violin. Beneath the postcards lay a soft, worn scarf, and, wrapped in tissue, a silver locket that had belonged to her grandmother. It was oval with a tiny dent near the hinge, like a dimple on a cheek. Elena had polished it until it remembered how to shine. She held it up to the light. Her plan was simple. Sell the locket, just this once. Buy Marco a proper set of artisan tools for the shop, the kind with handles that fit the hand like they were grown from it. Tools he could use to fix more bikes, earn a bit more, and feel the pride of work done with equipment worthy of his care. She kissed the locket, whispered an apology to her grandmother she hoped would be forgiven, and placed it in a little pouch. Across town, beneath the counter at the bike shop, Marco kept a small wooden box with a velvet lining. Inside, on a silver chain, rested a charm shaped like a tiny bread wreath, a keepsake he'd saved for 2 years to honor the work that fed their home. Elena loved old ovens and the way dough sighs when you press it with your fingers. She had dreamed aloud of a short course with a visiting baker in the city, someone who taught the secret conversations between flour and water and time. Marco had planned to surprise her with the charm and one day the course fee. But the rent had gobbled savings this autumn. The charm was what remained of the dream's outline. He thought, sell the charm now, buy Elena a professional mixer the bakery couldn't afford, a thing that would run like a friendly wind at her elbow. Maybe that would be a step toward her dream, or at least a way to lift her daily labor. When I slipped down the chimney, I'd always wipe my boots even on brick. Elena's candle had burned to a teardrop. She was gone, the locket tucked beneath her coat. In the shop, a bell over the door rang as Marco stepped into the evening, the charm wrapped in a bit of cloth. Snow began to draft from the sky in unhurried spirals. They passed each other on opposite sides of the town square, neither seeing the other, both walking with a purpose that hummed like a quiet carol. I could have nudged them. I could have shifted a flake or tugged a wind and made them look up. But some lessons want to arrive unannounced and land softly in the center of the room. Elena found the little antique store with the clock that never quite knew the time. It ticked with a gentle stutter, as if it needed reassurance. The shopkeeper, who wore a sweater the color of pine and eyes the color of old paper, took the locket in her palm and held it like a small bird. She recognized the kind of love it represented, the transference of grace from one generation to the next. She also recognized need. She offered a fair price. Elena nodded, swallowed, and said thank you, as though the thank you might break if she raised her voice. 2 streets over, Marco stepped into the jeweler's, the one with the magnifying lamp like a small moon. He unwrapped the charm and laid it down with care. The jeweler tilted it, watched how it caught light in its tiny twists, and sighed. Lovely work, he said. I can give you enough to buy something that matters. Marco thought of Elena's hands, strong and gentle, and smiled. That will be perfect, he said. He left with cash and a relief so light it almost lifted him. Back at the apartment, the plant by the window leaned farther toward the light, and the snow outside knit a soft shawl over the city. I said about my work, I don't only deliver packages, you know. Sometimes I deliver a nudge, a memory, a whisper of courage that arrives like the scent of oranges when you thought the bowl was empty. I placed a small parcel beneath their tiny fir, one of those trees that looks like a brave green candle. Inside the parcel was a single card and, tucked into the folded paper, a sprig of rosemary for remembrance. The card read, "The best tools in the world are hearts that listen." Elena returned first, cheeks bright, steps quick. She set a heavy box on the table and draped her coat on the chair with a sigh that ended in a smile. Moments later, Marco came in, hair speckled with snow, eyes shining. He hid his package behind his back like a boy caught with cookies. They laughed at the sight of each other, at how their joy ran ahead of them into the room. They exchanged gifts the way people exchange promises, with both hands. Elena unwrapped the artisan tools, wrenches balanced like music, a torque wrench that clicked with a satisfying, precise little truth, a set of files that could smooth not just metal, but the small rough places in a day. She touched them the way you touch a newborn's fingers, with reverence. Marco watched her, then urged her to open the card under the fur. She read it and laughed. Listening, she said, is exactly what you do to every bicycle. He thrust the words into his pocket as if they might grow warm there. Next, Elena presented the mixer. It was secondhand but solid, with the steady strength of a draft horse. Marco ran his hand over the paint where someone had scratched a heart years ago. He knew what it meant to lift effort from the back and put it on a machine that would carry it without complaint. Elena turned the knob, and it hummed like a beehive in June. They stood there, smiling, not yet noticing what was missing. It took a heartbeat, maybe 2. Then Elena touched her collarbone, where the locket would have rested on feast days. She smiled again, smaller this time, and folded the smile into herself, the way you fold a letter you cannot send. She said nothing. Marco's hand drifted toward the little box where the charm should have slept. He blinked slowly. He said nothing. Mutual silence can sometimes be louder than grief. In their eyes, I saw the arithmetic. The locket sold for tools for him. The charm sold for a mixer for her. 2 sacrifices met in the middle of the room, like 2 travelers who recognize each other after a long journey. Let me tell you what happened next, because it matters. They didn't rush to reassure the other. They didn't tangle words over who had done more, or whether it was foolish to part with a treasure. They simply stepped closer until their foreheads touched. They breathed in the same breath and let it out together. And in that rhythm, they found the true measure of the season. Love had transfigured 2 small losses into 1 large gain. A house strengthened by the visible tools of each other's care. I reached into my bag. Yes, it holds toys and trains and books and dolls. but it also holds moments that are waiting for the right room to arrive in. I took out something I have carried since a winter long ago, when another couple offered the best they had and discovered it was enough. Two small envelopes, each sealed with a wax snowflake. I set them gently on the sill beside the rosemary sprig. When Elena went to draw the curtain, she found them as if the night itself had delivered them. They opened the first envelope together. Inside was a voucher for the workshop Marcos had dreamed of gifting one day, the baker's course in the city, a week of flower-scented mornings, proofs and folds, and the patience to wait for a dough to rise, because great things require time. Elena covered her mouth. The second envelope contained a credit and a toolmakers who loved bicycles as much as children love recess. It would complete Marco's set and then some, allowing him to fix not just what was broken, but to tune what was nearly right into what was exactly right. He blinked fast, like a man looking into a winter sun. They looked around the room, trying to locate the seam through which this blessing had entered, because people always try to understand the mechanism of a miracle. Was it the neighbors? The bakery? The shop? They settled on the truth that makes more sense the older you get. Love multiplies in mysterious ways when it is spent bravely. Elena placed the rosemary on the table and said, "Let's remember this night by the way it felt." Marco nodded and said, "Let's remember to listen." In the days that followed, something subtle but strong took root. Elena went to the course in the late winter, when dawn is a pale coin turning over in the sky. She learned a rye dough that sings when it springs, a braid that holds its shape like a promise, a crust that cracks with the happiest sound. Marco added new services at the shop, taught neighborhood kids how to boil a chain, and started a bin labeled "Pay When You Can." Their home felt less like a place to store their tiredness and more like a place to restore their joy. The plant in the window put out a new leaf, glossy and bold. On a bright morning near spring, a child rolled into Marco's shop with a bicycle that protested like an old man told to dance. The child held a tiny paper bag with 2 cookies inside, shaped like wreaths. "My mom made these," the child said, "because you fixed my brakes last week and wouldn't take anything." Marco recognized the scent, citrus and rosemary, Elena's new favorite experiment. The child didn't know it, but they were delivering proof that generosity rounds the world and returns to your doorstep wearing a new coat. Years from now, someone will ask Elena and Marco what their favorite Christmas gift ever was. They will glance at each other and answer with the same story, told in 2 voices that harmonize. The year we gave up our treasures to give each other tools and found out that love had already stored what we needed in the spaces between us. They will not mention the envelopes, because some things belong to the quiet. They will talk about the way the snow fell like blessings, the way the mixer hummed, the way the wrench clicked, the way the rosemary smelled when it warmed in the candle's heat. They will talk about how rich they felt with almost nothing and how that feeling taught them how to live when they had a little more. Up above, I guided the sleigh home along a river of starlight, thinking about the arithmetic of gifts. The world will tell you that a great gift is measured in size or price or spectacle. It will try to sell you the idea that love must be proven by something you can photograph. But I have seen centuries of mornings after, and I can tell you the truth. The best gifts do not clutter a room. They clear it. They make space for joy to sit down and stay a while. They teach you to listen, to remember, to match your courage to the season. So if you are wondering this year whether your gift is enough, let Elena and Marco answer for me. Give with your whole heart. Give what you can carry and what you can live without. Give in a way that makes room for the other person to grow. Bake a loaf that you cut in the middle and hand to a neighbor. Tighten a bolt on a bicycle and call it a hymn. Polish an old locket and whisper thank you to the hands that wore it before you. Then sit together in the small circle of light you have made and notice how large it feels. I can still smell the rosemary. I can still hear the mixer's gentle thrum. I can still feel the soft weight of 2 envelopes in my glove, lighter than air and heavier than gold. I will carry that feeling with me through the long winter nights, and I hope you carry it too. Merry Christmas to all, and may your gifts, whatever shape they take, bring you home to one another.